All right, welcome to This Explainer. Look, I've spent a lot of time poring over case files, police reports, witness testimonies, you name it. And if there's one thing I've learned from sitting behind this desk for so long, it's that the entire world changes the second the sun goes down. To all the teenagers watching this right now, the ones who think they're invincible, who think the dark is just, an empty canvas for late-night adventures, I need you to listen very closely. What we're about to look at today, these aren't campfire stories or urban legends. These are real, heavily documented encounters straight from the archives. And they all share one incredibly terrifying theme: the unpredictable, absolute danger of the night. I see you up there. Just let those words sink in for a second. Imagine the paralyzing horror of looking out your own bedroom window, staring into the pitch-black safety of your fenced-in backyard, only to realize that the darkness is looking right back at you. You aren't hidden at all. You're being hunted. So I'm opening up the investigator's log today to review a series of absolutely chilling, unexplainable cold cases. These involve people who either stayed out a little too late or, worse, people who simply trusted the safety of their own locked homes. Now, my goal with this explainer, it isn't just to scare you, though honestly probably will. It's to show you, by breaking down the hard evidence in these files, exactly how predators and criminals operate under the cover of night. We're going to break down the actual anatomy of these horrific encounters so you can understand the brutal reality of what happens the second you let your guard down. Okay, let's dive right into this first case file. We've got a 16-year-old girl. It's the weekend, and she's hanging out at a friend's house in this very quiet, seemingly totally safe suburban neighborhood. Well, some unwanted guests end up crashing the party, so she decides, you know what, I've had enough, I'm just gonna walk the 20 minutes home alone. It's a route she probably knows like the back of her hand, right? But this extremely mundane, frustrating night quickly spiraled into a literal fight for survival, where she found herself actively being followed and hunted through her own streets. Let's walk through the timeline here, because the escalation is terrifying. She's walking home in the dark. Suddenly, she hears unfamiliar footsteps behind her. She slows down, they slow down. A middle-aged man in a hoodie is just shadowing her. He starts off with this casual, totally non-threatening conversation. He's smiling, asking how her night's going, commenting on the weather. And by the way, this is a classic predator tactic to test boundaries. Then, about 5 minutes later, he escalates. He asks, "Are you from the neighborhood?" She gives these really short, firm answers, trying to brush him off. But the guy's confidence is just slowly building in the dark. Then, the absolute nightmare scenario unfolds. He stops walking. He flashes this deeply sinister smile, and he actually says, "I'm not going to hurt you. You live by the elementary school, right?" He knows exactly where she lives. And the wildest part, hours later, even after she manages to escape and get safely inside her house, this exact same man breaches her backyard gate, stands in the pitch black, and calls right up to her bedroom window. And this is what's truly terrifying. It's how fast the mask slips. When this suspect revealed he knew her address, she panicked. She screamed for her life and took off running. Instantly, that friendly, smiling, nice guy act, completely gone. He yelled, "Shut up, you little bitch," and just started chasing her. It was only because she screamed bloody murder, threatening to wake the whole block up, that he finally retreated back into the darkness. But it proved without a doubt the imminent, life-threatening danger she was actually in. So looking at this as an investigator, the crucial question is, how? How did a seemingly random guy walking in the suburbs know she lived by the elementary school? Was he watching her before this night even started? Did he know she was at that specific party? And when he broke into her gated backyard hours later to stare up at her window, what was his ultimate plan? It really highlights the horrific vulnerability of being targeted. This is exactly why walking alone at night is a risk you just can't calculate. All right, let's pull the next file. We've got an 18-year-old camper, her friend Anna, and her parents on a road trip in Sweden. But there's a massive soccer tournament going on, so every single local campsite is completely fully booked. Left with literally no other options, they end up stranded in this desolate gravel parking lot right in the middle of a nature reserve, just surrounded by dense black forest. It's midnight. The only other thing around is a single beat-up, abandoned car parked way on the far side of the lot. They zip themselves into these flimsy nylon tents, practically cut off from civilization. Now I want you to really put yourself in their shoes for a second. Imagine that utter, suffocating darkness of a deep forest at midnight and follow these auditory cues as they escalate. First, they hear it. The distinct metallic clatter of a shovel hitting the gravel over near that abandoned car. Next, the sound of that shovel being violently tossed into a trunk, the trunk slamming shut, and tires just tearing off into the night. At this point, they are paralyzed with fear in their sleeping bags. 10 minutes of dead, heavy silence go by. Then, out of nowhere, that silence is shattered by the loudest, most blood-curdling man's scream echoing from deep inside the woods. And if that wasn't terrifying enough, shortly after, they start hearing stealthy footsteps crunching on the gravel right outside their tent. The mother, who's wide awake in the other tent, hears something even worse. Heavy, deliberate breathing slowly circling their fragile little shelter in the pitch black. And this brilliantly illustrates why this particular file is so chilling. Thankfully, the victims survived by bolting to their locked car, hiding there until dawn, and speeding off. But later research revealed the terrifying truth about where they were. This wasn't some local prank or a ghost story, no. That secluded beach, it was a known hotspot for organized crime syndicates. A man had actually been murdered there recently, stabbed over some gang debts. 2 other men had vanished without a trace from that exact same spot. And get this, that night, the victims actually saw a police car screaming down the main road, actively chasing the suspect vehicle that had fled the gravel lot. The threat wasn't in their heads, it was a very real, very violent criminal enterprise operating literally feet away from where they were trying to sleep. Now, let's move to our final case files. You're probably sitting there watching this thinking, okay, simple, I just won't walk alone at night, and I'm definitely not camping in the woods. I'll just stay locked inside my house. Well, these next 2 reports are a masterclass in why even a locked, familiar house isn't a guarantee when the sun goes down. We've got 2 young brothers dealing with a midnight intrusion and an adult guest who had an encounter with a silent observer. Let's start with the 2 brothers, 6 and 8 years old. It's the absolute middle of the night. They get woken up by what sounds like their mother whispering their names from downstairs. So the 6-year-old gets out of bed, unlocks his door, creeps over to the stairway, and he opens the door just a crack. And at the bottom of the pitch-black stairs stands the silhouette of a strange woman. She looks right up at him, and in this chilling, quiet whisper, she says, "Hi, sweetie, come down." She was literally trying to lure a 6-year-old boy into the dark by pretending to be his mother. Now, the boys thankfully did the right thing. They screamed, stomped on the floor, woke their parents up, and the parents chased the woman out and called the cops. For years, the parents told the kids, hey, it was just a random intruder, don't worry about it. But think about it. If it was totally random, how did that intruder know the kids' names? She was calling for them specifically. The sinister implications there of a targeted home invasion, of a predator who has actively studied your family, that is a terror that literally sticks with you for a lifetime. Okay, we transition to our final case. We have an adult victim this time, visiting an old buddy at this aged, incredibly creaky house in Austin, Texas. They have a night of heavy drinking, and he crashes in this dusty spare bedroom. Somewhere in the middle of the night, he wakes up. The room is pitch dark, there's just a tiny bit of moonlight slicing through the blinds, and over in the corner, he sees it. A broad, shoulder-like silhouette hanging out in the dark corner of the closet. Looks exactly like a tall guy wearing a black trench coat. He's drunk, he's terrified, but he manages to convince himself it's just a coat rack, go to sleep, and he forces his eyes shut. But when dawn breaks and he wakes up to the sound of soft floorboards creaking nearby, he looks back at that corner. The shape is completely gone, nothing but an empty closet door. So he frantically wakes up his friend, actually drags him down the hall into the spare room to explain about this missing coat. And his buddy just looks at him, totally deadpan, and goes, I don't own a trench coat, man. I don't even have a coat rack in that room. The paralyzing realization here is that it wasn't a trick of the light, it wasn't the booze playing games with his head, there was absolutely no furniture there. Someone, a total stranger, had just been standing completely still in the dark corner of that bedroom, silently watching him sleep for hours. As an investigator, I'm closing up the files for today. But to everyone watching this explainer, especially you younger folks, I'm leaving you with one word to remember: vigilance. It means the action or state of keeping careful watch for possible danger. Look, the night completely strips away your visibility, your awareness, and your standard safety nets. Whether you're walking down a familiar suburban sidewalk, sleeping out in a forest, or literally locked inside your own seemingly secure bedroom, danger simply doesn't respect boundaries. So please, never ever let your guard down in the dark. So, I'm going to leave you with one final thought to chew on as we wrap up this explainer. I want you to keep this right in the back of your mind when you go to turn off the lights tonight. When the house finally settles and the shadows get a little longer across your room and you hear those familiar floorboards creak right outside your door, are you entirely